did you have these places you were going to stop pre-planned, and did you call somebody before you got there so you would know that you'd have a place to stay?
Right. Normally, the majority of the journey was pretty wild. The majority of the journey was camping out on the islands in the middle of the Mississippi River. But some of the stories were planned and plotted. Other stories were the stumble-upons. And the stumble-upons, a lot of times proved to be the most interesting. But for example, here in Oxford, I had no contacts at all. I came into town, slept in a motel for the first night, and I was promised the ambience of Oxford that they advertised as a stone's throw from the Oxford Square. But it was actually up towards the freeway, a little ways away. But anyway, so the first night, so I sent a mayday to my writing partner, Dr. Cindy Lovell, at the Twain Museum. And she called Roanoke. Roanoke handed the phone to Bob DeCaleb, and I was invited to stay here. So, yes. The source, which is Lake Itasca, in Minnesota's wild north. Yeah.
And where did you get off?
New Orleans was the final destination for myself. Yeah, so New Orleans was the final stop. Yeah.
How long did it take you?
4 months and 22 days. In total, so comprising about 2,200 river miles down the river.
How much of that was on the water?
Oh, good question. Most people who do the river, most people who do the river, it's sort of the man against nature sort of thing, and those numbers generally come in around 90 days. So you could add on, and you have my river months. Yes.
How many locks did you go through coming down from the top?
I believe there's 26 locks, starting in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then finishing in St. Louis. From St. Louis down, it's really a river wild, especially when the confluence of the Ohio creeps in. You have some real wild waters there. It's pretty wild.
Anybody trying to run you down? I mean, what's some of the freighters and the boats or holes and the ones that carry the boats?
Right, yeah.
It's a question.
Oh, right. So the question is, was I ever run down or almost run down in the river with these barges? And the answer is, yeah, you have to keep well clear of them. But yeah, several times I came close. Just because you're hugging the river coming around and you don't know if they're going to come around the other side and which side of the river they'll be on. But at first I was sort of waving, and they were shining the lights and coming out of the wheelhouse and waving back. And then I realized that these things are monsters and they're deadly. And I have to stop waving and start like paddling together. That was fun. Yes.
You started this travels when you were pretty young. I want to know how your parents felt about it.
Oh, right. I lost my mom when I was a young man, unfortunately. But my father, I made sure I visited him. I was coming in from the Far East on that spell, and I made sure that I visited him after I finished, because if I would have visited him before, he would probably talk me into, or try to talk me into not going. So yeah, I had to see him afterwards. But he followed right along. I was blogging, I was uploading stories the whole time, so he could follow along, and he was happy. Yes.
Did you ever have any doubts that you could actually complete the trip, or did you ever feel tempted to give up? It sounds like a very arduous journey to me.
Right, yeah. It's I did before I started, especially the week leading up. I've been coming from a lifetime of city living, you could say. I'm from Los Angeles originally, which I know isn't popular to say, but really a lot of time in South Africa, a lot of time in Hong Kong, in Taipei, in the Far East, and so. To come camping for one night is one thing. To go, out in the wild for a few days is something else, maybe a week, and then you come home to your shower or whatnot. But to really put yourself out there for a long time, I was scared. But the hardest part of the whole journey, of course, was getting into the canoe and launching. And as soon as I did that, I was out in the middle of Lake Itasca, and I was by myself, but I just had this great big smile because I realized I not only could make it, but I would make it. That I'd make it all the way down. But there were a couple of times on the river, just north of Memphis. Actually, to start with the confluence of the Ohio at Cairo, that was just a terrible experience and crazy actually. But I had this story planned for Cairo, race relations story that I really wanted to share, and I had a minister who was going to meet me there, and so I had to make that night. But and then there was one night where the island I was sleeping on, actually Moore Island, my surname, just south of Cairo. That island disappeared in the middle of the night. The Mississippi rose 5 feet. And these big rolling waves and tree trunks and all sorts of things. And there I was sort of, and it was dark, and I was by myself in it. I mean, that was crazy. And I was positive I was going to give up. I was right across from Hickman, Kentucky, and I was sure that I was going to give up. It was very scary. And then I was talking to somebody there on the side of the river, and he was trying to talk me out of it. And then I found myself defending the journey, defending the idea of a canoe as a craft. And before I knew it, I looked over to the river, and it was still as glass. And I thought, I can make it to Memphis. I can do it. So I got back on.
You support yourself along the way in Africa.
Oh, right. I sort of, what I do is I teach, I've taught English in Asia. I've worked in politics here in America. My older brother is politically minded, you could say. And so I've come back for 4 different campaigns over the years to support folks here in America as well. So I sort of save and then travel. But I really do travel on a shoestring. So before I came to the Mississippi River, I had saved for a year and a half to make that trip. I didn't want to have a free ride. Some folks were offering to sponsor me or support me if I could just put the name of their clothing line on the canoe or whatnot. And then I was thinking about it, and then I thought, no, I don't want to ask for anything. I want to have it sort of no free ride in my own journey, just to be completely free that way. Yes.
Okay, Oxford is inland. Okay, how did you get, you came off of Clarksdale, right?
Yeah, Clarksdale.
How did you get from Clarksdale to Oxford?
Right. I had met Jay Seelman, who's the executive director of the Blues Foundation up in Memphis, and I interviewed him, and then I wanted to do a story on the blues, which I did in Clarksdale, but I wanted to get the context. So he gave me from Super Chicken his contact, and I was able to interview him. He also put me in touch with the Homemade Blues Band in Tupelo, for the kids who have the sort of Ford and Chevy guitars, with motor parts and whatnot. And so from Clarksdale, I hopped on the bus, a Delta Lines bus, back to Memphis, across to Tupelo. There's no public transport into Oxford, so I hopped in a taxi from Tupelo, and he dropped me here in Oxford on the square, and here I was. Right. Expensive trip. Yes.
So you planned this for a year and a half? You planned to do this?
I did, yeah. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I knew that I was going to do something, and then the epiphany occurred actually in Cape Town. It was the time when the pundits and politicians and bankers were predicting economic collapse, and the headlines all over the world were saying this. And I really wanted to try to document, or to attempt to document the face of the economic downturn. And so that's when the thinking came, don't do it from LA or from New York, but try to really come to the epicenter of America and to tell the story through these people's lives and their experiences. So that was the thinking. Yes?
Do you still have the 410 shotgun?
Sorry?
Do you still have the 410 shotgun you received as a gift?
No, I was able to give it back to the farmers. And they're not. I'm not really much of a shot anyway. So. Yeah. Good.
You still have the canoe?
Yeah, it's at the Twain Museum actually in Hannibal. It's there. Yes. I'm not familiar. I just actually come from the Far East. I came a week ago, and so I've sort of been out of the loop for a while, but no, I haven't heard. It sounds great. Yeah. Good. Anyway, so this is the book. It's Down the Mississippi, and my name is Neal, and my co-author is Dr. Cindy Lovell. She's the executive director of the Twain Museum, and she's the one she's wonderful. She lives and breathes Twain in a wonderful way, and she has great knowledge. And so she brings in Twain, not just Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, but she brings in the last letter that he ever wrote, for example, is in here. And she just, at first he's sort of encouraging and sort of making remarks and reprimanding me along the way. Then when I get to Hannibal, he doesn't really take over, but he's definitely there. And then, of course, from St. Louis down to New Orleans, this was Twain's original river run as a cub steamboat pilot. So he has a lot to say about the Mississippi River and the characters all along the way.
What are your future plans?
Future plans. I'm moving to Cape Town. Actually, sorry, from here I fly to Houston, going to see friends in Texas. Then driving up in about a week's time to Hannibal for the official launch of the book on the 28th at the Twain Museum in Hannibal, Missouri. Then about a week later I fly to Cape Town, where I'll take up residence. And my plan there is to buy a surfboard. And then plot and plan for the next great adventure, really. So,
English over there or here in place when you go over there?
No, yeah, so I teach English in the Far East, in Asia, but in Africa, I have lots of friends there. But, I've worked with everything from doing aid work for the International Red Cross to working with African art. To folks. What's great about Cape Town, you have Africa, right? What's great about Cape Town is it's the richest country and the richest city in all of Africa. So you have different folks who come down. So I have friends in Cape Town from all over Africa, which is just wonderful. It's really a melting pot.
Have you written about your life there?
I haven't, no. I'd like to maybe try that at some point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're waiting, okay.
So he actually has books shipped here. So if you'd like to get a book, it's $16. And I know Neal will be happy to sign it for you. Thank you all for coming. And I know he'll stay around.